You ever have that sinking feeling? You get to the end of the month, you look at your bank account, and you just think, where on earth did it all go? You're working hard, you're making decent money, but that feeling of being financially secure just seems miles away. Well, you are definitely not alone. Today, we're diving into a book that basically became a phenomenon by tackling that exact feeling head-on. Scott Pape's The Barefoot Investor. It's a system that has totally transformed the financial lives of thousands, and not with complicated jargon, but with super simple, actionable steps. We're going to break it all down for you.
In this right here, this is pretty much why the book even exists. For so many of us, money is this big, scary, taboo topic, right? It wasn't talked about at the dinner table, and it definitely wasn't a main subject in school. We were basically taught how to go out and get a job, but not what to do with the money once it hit our bank account. And that just creates this void that gets filled with stress and anxiety and this quiet fear that you're always just one flat tire away from real trouble. It's such a heavy weight to carry around.
And that feeling like money is just sand slipping through your fingers, it's incredibly frustrating. It makes you feel like you're not in control. You might even start telling yourself a story that you're just bad with money. But here's the thing, you're probably not bad with money, you just haven't been given a good system. It was that exact frustration that Scott Pape wanted to solve. He created a roadmap that just cuts through all the noise and gives regular people a sense of control, maybe for the very first time.
Okay, let's get into it. Here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we're going to look at why this book became such a massive deal. Then, we'll get right to the heart of it, the serviette strategy, and crucially, how to automate it so it does the work for you. From there, we'll talk about how to domino your debts. We'll also do a really important reality check on whether the advice still works today. And finally, we get to the really good part. What life looks like after debt, when you're on the path to building some real long-term wealth.
So seriously, how did a book with this kind of folksy, down-to-earth tone manage to outsell almost every other book in Australia? Well, it's because the financial industry often makes money from things being complicated. It uses confusing language and complex products that make you feel like you need to hire some expensive expert for everything. The Barefoot Investor did the complete opposite. It talked about money in plain English, with a step-by-step plan that literally anyone could follow. It wasn't advice for rich people, it was a plan to get financially secure for everybody else.
And here is the absolute genius of the first step. It has nothing to do with a spreadsheet or a budget. It's a date night. The whole philosophy starts by changing your relationship with money. By scheduling one night a month, over a pizza, a bottle of wine, whatever, to just talk openly about your finances, you completely change the dynamic. It stops being the source of stress and becomes a shared project, like you're a team. It's all about getting on the same page and turning money management into a positive habit.
Okay, so at the absolute core of the entire Barefoot system is an idea so simple, Pepe says you can sketch it out on the back of a dinner napkin or a serviette. This is such a direct challenge to those 100-page financial plans that cost a fortune. The message is just so clear. Managing your money doesn't have to be this big, overwhelming thing. The foundation of your entire financial future can be understood in the time it takes to finish your dinner. It's all about creating a super simple but powerful structure for your money.
Now, what's so powerful about this is just how simple it is. Your entire financial world is split into just 3 buckets. That's it. You've got the blow bucket, which handles all your day-to-day living and even some planned fun. The mojo bucket, that's your sleep at night fund, your safety net that stops a surprise bill from turning into a disaster. And the grow bucket, well, that's for your future. That's for building real, lasting wealth. Every single dollar that comes in gets one of these 3 jobs. No confusion, simple.
And this is basically the engine room of the whole system, the blow bucket. Your take-home pay gets divided up using these percentages. A maximum of 60% is for all your daily expenses, rent, mortgage, bills, groceries. Then you've got 2 accounts that are amazing for your mental health. 10% for splurge. This is guilt-free money for fun stuff. You can spend it on anything. And 10% for smile, which is for those bigger goals like a vacation or a new couch. And then there's the most powerful part. 20% goes into your fire extinguisher account, which is a dedicated fund you use to just destroy your debt.
So a plan is great, but it's useless if you don't actually do it. And the real genius of the Barefoot system is that it's designed to run on autopilot. This is so important because it gets rid of the #1 reason most financial plans fail, our own emotions and a lack of willpower. By setting up your bank accounts in a really specific way, the system does all the heavy lifting for you, splitting up your paycheck into the right buckets every single time before you even have a chance to touch it.
So here's the nuts and bolts of how it all works. You need 5 specific accounts.
2 are for everyday spending with debit cards, 1 for your 60% daily expenses, and a totally separate one for your 10% splurge money. Then you open 3 online-only high-interest savings accounts with no cards attached, 1 for Smile, 1 for the fire extinguisher, and 1 for your Mojo emergency fund. The second you get paid, you have automatic transfers set up to shoot the right amounts into the right accounts. And that last tip, it's gold. Keep your Mojo safety money in a completely different bank. It creates just enough friction to stop you from dipping into it for things that aren't real emergencies. Out of sight, out of mind.
All right, so you've got the system set up, it's running on its own. Now it's time for the first big mission for a lot of people, getting out of debt. I mean, this is often the single heaviest weight people carry. Payne's approach isn't just about the math, it's about psychology. It's about motivation. He turns getting out of debt into a game of dominoes, creating these small, satisfying wins that build this incredible momentum and keep you fired up to get to the finish line.
Here's the game plan. First, you have to face the music. List out every single debt you have. Credit cards, personal loans, everything. It's hard, but it's the first step to getting control. Second, you call your banks and you ask for a lower interest rate. You'd be amazed how often they say yes. Then comes the part that's a bit controversial, but totally brilliant. You order your debts not by the interest rate, but by the size, from smallest to largest. Then you take every spare dollar from your fire extinguisher account and you throw it at that smallest debt. The feeling you get when you completely wipe it out is this huge psychological boost. Then you take all the money you were paying on that first debt and you snowball it onto the next smallest debt. And that is how you build an absolute avalanche of debt destruction.
And this, right here, is what makes the strategy so different. It's not about feeling deprived, it's about celebrating. Pape actually encourages you to make a little ceremony out of it. When a debt is gone, you close the account, you get rid of the statement, and you celebrate that win. Maybe it's a nice dinner out, whatever feels like a reward. This whole process just reframes your mindset. Every debt you kill isn't a sacrifice, it's a victory. It's a huge step toward freedom, and that deserves a celebration.
So this book has been a bestseller for years now, right? Which leads to a really fair question. Is all this advice still relevant today? I mean, the financial world is always changing. Interest rates, new products, the economy. It's not just smart to ask this question, it's pretty essential. So let's do a quick reality check on what has totally stood the test of time and what might need a bit of a modern update.
The general verdict is pretty clear. The core principles, the whole philosophy of the book, are absolutely timeless. The bucket system for managing your money is never going out of style. The critical need for an emergency fund, the sheer power of automation, the psychological genius of the debt snowball, that stuff is always going to work. What's become dated are the specific product recommendations. So the best high-interest savings account from a few years ago probably isn't the best one today. The big takeaway is to follow the Barefoot strategy, but do your own up-to-date research on the specific products you use to make it happen.
You know, it's also really important to remember that personal finance is, well, personal. The smallest to largest debt domino plan is designed for maximum motivation, but it might not be the best choice for every single person. For example, if you have a tax debt with a scary deadline, it probably makes more sense to tackle that first, even if it's not the smallest one. The lesson here is to use the Barefoot system as this amazing framework, but also feel empowered to tweak it to fit your actual life.
So, you've done it. You followed the steps, you stayed disciplined, you dominoed all your debts, and the financial fires are finally out. This is where the story gets really, really exciting. This isn't the end of the road, it's just the beginning of the next phase, which is way more fun. You've officially switched from playing defense against debt to playing offense. And now you can actively start building some serious long-term wealth.
Just take a second and look at that. Zero debt. This is the first massive milestone of the Barefoot system. No credit cards, no car loans, and eventually, maybe even no mortgage. This isn't just a number. This is freedom. It is the ultimate status symbol because it means every single dollar you earn from this point on is truly yours. Nobody else has a claim on it. You get to call all the shots. Your choices are now about what you want to do, not what you have to do just to pay off debt.
This is a real reaction from Scott Pape to someone who followed the steps and paid off their entire mortgage by the time they were 32. To a lot of people, that sounds like a complete fairy tale. But it shows what's possible when you have a focused plan and you aim all that fire extinguisher money at your mortgage once the other debts are gone. Once that massive expense, the biggest one for most of us, is gone, your ability to build wealth just goes into hyperdrive.
So what happens next? Well, the path to wealth is just as clear.
First, you beef up your Mojo emergency fund to cover a full 3 months of your living expenses. Then, you boost your retirement savings by bumping up your contributions to your superannuation, that's Australia's retirement savings system, aiming for 15% of your income. After that, you start investing the extra cash. Pape is a big fan of low-cost index funds, which is a super simple way to own a tiny piece of hundreds of big companies. You get instant diversification without having to be a stock-picking expert. And the potential here is just staggering. Being debt-free means you can invest seriously, and because of the power of compounding, that money can grow into a multi-million-dollar nest egg by the time you retire.
Look, at the end of the day, this whole system is just a really powerful tool. It's a ladder to get you out of that financial hole and up to a place where you feel secure and free. But once you get there, the question becomes really personal. What would you do if you didn't have to worry about money? Would you travel? Would you retire early? Would you switch to a more meaningful career that maybe pays less? Would you start a business? Just take a second and really think about what that freedom would actually look like for you, because having a clear picture of that goal is the best motivation to stick with the plan.
And that's our breakdown of the Barefoot Investor. It's a powerful, simple system that has proven itself over and over again. If this explainer gave you a little bit of clarity or maybe just a little bit of hope, please help us spread the word by liking, subscribing, and sharing this with anyone you know who could use a straightforward guide to taking back control of their money. Thanks so much for watching.